Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks so much for joining. Today I have a really exciting show to share some great photos with you. We're headed to Utqiagvik, or I'm not sure I didn't pronounce it right, but Barrow, the northernmost place in Alaska. And so, yeah, I just wanted to show some of these photos from our trip. Emily and I went there in the spring of, oh boy, I'm trying to think of what year that was. 2 years ago. So 2022, I think. We went there in June. It was just the two of us, had never been before. We wanted to experience it ourselves and just explore it. So I did a little bit of research and kind of found out that, yeah, you basically just go there, rent a car, drive around, see what's out there, that kind of thing. So I found that out just from some of my other photographer friends who had either been or run workshops there. And yeah, we just wanted to go and explore it on our own, see what we could find. And I kind of had sort of a personal checklist of wanting to get to like the northernmost city you could get to in the US and see the Arctic Ocean and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. And I knew it was a place where we could get some birds that we couldn't really easily get anywhere else. We had just come from Nome. Emily and I went to Nome right before that for about a week with our good friends, Jamin and Sergis. And we had a great time there, but then they couldn't make it, so Emily and I went to do this trip up to Utqiagvik, and it was really interesting. It was a really interesting place. Not a place I think I'll probably ever go again. It's not my favorite for the style of photography that I like to do, basically because it's just flat brown tundra as far as the eye could see. There was no scenery, no mountains, no anything really like that in the background. And it challenged me as far as getting creative, small in frame, bird and habitat shots, as you'll see. I did get some I was really happy with and proud of, but it seems like a place that's a little bit more geared towards getting portraits. But the main draw there is getting birds you can't get anywhere else. And for me, it was the 3 eider species I'd never seen. Up until these trips up to Nome and Utqiagvik, I had seen plenty of common eiders. I could see them in the New Jersey coast and some other places I had seen them. But I had never seen, what else do we have? King, Stellers, or spectacled. So those were the 3 I was hoping to check off the list, and thankfully I did. The first 2 were pretty easy to find. The spectacle was the first one we found. The kings were pretty common to find. And then the Stellers was the really hard one, and thankfully some of my friends up there who run workshops were giving me pointers as to where they had seen some, and I was able to go out and get it. So anyway, let's jump into it. We'll get right into the stories of these shots. Here's some of my favorite images here from my time up there. I have a lot more to show you, but I wanted to start out with just these, and then actually I'm going to start out with just showing you guys a video of what it looks like when you arrive up there. So it's the northernmost city you can fly into. It's an easy flight in. You just fly out of Anchorage, get a flight there, land there. We rented a car, and then we got out and started just driving around, and yeah, this is what the place looks like up there. It's pretty barren, pretty sparse. This is what the locals live in and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's a very unique place for sure. So with that being said, let's jump into some of the first things that happened. So here's a photo. Emily joined me, thankfully. I'm so glad she went and got the chance, but I know it's a place she'll probably never go again. She does not like the cold. And so she was certainly bundled up the whole time. It was near freezing temperatures pretty much the entire time we were there. And this was taken right after we got there. We got there, rented the car, dropped the gear off at the hotel, and out we went. And it was, just stay out overnight. This was the first place I've ever been that is full sunlight 24 hours a day. And I was excited for that. But what I didn't think of and never thought to even research, which we did almost no research other than just get a hotel and go up there. It never dawned on me that that time of year, the sun won't go that low. And so I think it was around 3 a.m. that the sun was the lowest it would be in the sky. And even at that point, it was still pretty high in the sky. So we ended up with these scenarios where the light never got that golden. Like I was kind of in my head thinking like 24-hour-a-day sun. No, the sun's just going to be skimming along the horizon and just be low the whole time. And it never got that high, but it also never got that low. It's like, yeah, it's just surprising. So there's still some really good light to be had. That's not to say that you can't get some great shots, and you'll see, but it wasn't as low as I thought it was going to be. So anyway, we get there, we get out in the tundra, and we start going around. This is a little out of sequence. In fact, you can kind of see this was a selfie. There's like that little dot right there is the first king eider we found, or maybe that was the spectacled. I can't remember. But anyway, the first thing that really happened is this. This was my first move. We get the rental car, we're driving. There's like two roads that kind of lead out of town, one direction or the other. You just pick one and go, and pick the other one or go. We picked this road, started driving, and we come up to this puddle, and I saw it looked kind of like shallower on the side, so I decided to kind of go around the edge of the puddle. Big mistake. It was really soft on the sides, and you can see, like, I buried this thing up to the frame in the mud. So long story short, a few people came by, some went right by and didn't help. Yeah, I just noticed, you can see Emily in there. Yeah, some went by, didn't help. They just wanted to go out birding, which I get it. Another photographer we know that runs workshops up there, Ben Newt, actually came by with his crew, was kind enough to stop for a little bit. We got to say hello to some of the people that knew us, which was nice, but not the best scenario. Anyway, he tried to make some calls. There's no tow company in town. And this was, I think this was probably right now, this was like 11 o'clock, midnight, something like that, somewhere in that ballpark. So some natives came by, some of the locals, and they tried to help us out, couldn't get it out. They only had ATVs. And then finally, eventually a local with a truck came by, had some tow chains. We hooked him up, he popped us right out, and we were good to go. It never happened again. But what I realized is I should have walked through the damn puddle first, because it was completely solid in the middle. So anyway, that was our introduction. So yes, we get out in the tundra then, and I just wanted to come back to this photo. Everybody I know goes up there with waders, and for good reason. You get in the water a lot, and it's the whole tundra. You can see it's just everything. Even like the drier land up here, if you sit or kneel down, it's wet, right? So you just need to have waterproof something. We opted to bring dry suits for two reasons. Number one, they pack up a lot smaller and lighter weight, which is really good. And number two, the main reason I wanted is I wanted to be able to move around completely free. With waders, you have to watch about water getting in. So like if you're imagining laying down in these areas where you can see my cursor back here, stuff like that, you wouldn't be able to completely lay down. You have to worry about water coming in over the top of the waders. If you get in the water too deep, you have to worry about that. With these dry suits, we're able to just do anything we wanted. We could lay around and crawl around, and you'll see how that worked out a little bit later. The first thing, this was one of the first things we saw out there, was an Arctic fox, way off in the distance. This is cropped to death, but pretty cool to see an Arctic fox. My first time ever seeing one, so grab a shot, get a documentary shot. But then this was our first bird. Our first bird to photograph in Utqiagvik was this beautiful Steller's eider. Strong sun, a little bit windy on the surface of the water, so not great, but he was super chill. Came over. I think there was actually two of them. One kind of stayed far away, but this guy came over. Thankfully, he came into some better light, and I was able to get some of these shots that you see here. And this is like my, just like the nice clean portrait. You can see the light's pretty strong. It's not like really good golden light or anything. The water's kind of choppy, but it worked out. I think, yeah, I threw the teleconverter in for this one, just to kind of keep it like a tight, clean portrait, because he was a little far out there. But what a unique looking eider species. So already it was like really cool right off the bat, got that. And so grabbed a few shots of him, and then he kind of swam away. Guys, this was our next experience. Just a little bit down the way from that spectacled. We had walked out on one side of the tundra, the road, to see that spectacled, come back to this side and find a king eider and get a shot like this. Like already, just right off the bat, the light's getting better here, you can see. So we got a little bit lower sun at that point. And yeah, it was a male-female pair. I mean, again, what a unique looking, weird looking duck, with that big knob and everything, but they are stunning. So got a few shots of them, had a long-billed dowitcher on the way in. I think I was crawling in to get closer to the king eider. Again, we had shot him here, and then they had moved on to another little puddle. Basically, they just moved from like kind of little tiny tundra pool to little tiny tundra pool. It's like, that's kind of how it goes. It's very rare to see a bird flush up there. I don't know what the deal is, but that's kind of how it was. And so, yeah, trying to get from one to the other, just kind of following along and trying not to chase him too much. I was just crawling along, found this long-billed dowitcher, shot him along the way, and then got up to this pool that they were feeding in. And so yeah, got these really great shots of these guys just, you know, this king eider just feeding in this pool. I went in first. I think Emily was hanging back a little bit at that point. And then she came in second and did some photography because we were trying not to, like I said, try not to rush them and like two of us go in at the same time kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, my goodness, for being out there, well, the first hour, 2 hours or so was wasted being in the mud. But once we were unstuck, it was basically like the first, you know, within the first hour, we were getting photos like this, like, and just completely under it, just driving along, you look out, there's a bird, let's go see him, you know? And so that's kind of how it went. There's some nice portraits of the female, got the male. They were feeding right in front of me there. No issues, like super calm, just doing their thing. So that was really, really fun. Here's a shot of Emily actually kind of like working. And this is what it looks like when you shoot out there. You're just out there laying in the flat tundra, getting really low. But you can see there's no habitat or anything like that back there. There she is with the pair of king eiders. You can see the male and female back there. So after she had went and shot them, she came back all soaking wet. But yeah, just kind of, this is what it is, right? And that's how you can see how it's like, it's not the most exciting landscape out there. It really isn't. Just a lot of brown tundra and stuff like that. So flat as far as the eye could see. Anyway, a little bit after that, this king eider, the pair of them walk across the road that we were driving on. And they're just going to another pond. I don't know. We weren't even photographing them, so we weren't real close. They just decided that's where they wanted to go. And it was funny. It was mostly the female would go somewhere and the male would just follow her along. It was really, really cute. So here's me going out to photograph this guy. And here's one of the shots that I got from that. So this was kind of cool because I was able to shoot him just in the grass. And so I'm going to show you guys a video now of me out in the tundra here. So Emily recorded this moment of me being out there with this guy. And you'll see, like, look how close
King
I was.
Eider, an amazing light.
Chilling right there. And then, yeah,
Babes,
all along trying to get a
BFF
better
King.
background and better light direction is what I was doing. And then doing my patented shorebird trick. So you keep your eye in the viewfinder, keep shooting, and then you just wave your leg around. I was trying to get his attention. So, and he wasn't looking. He was like completely ignoring me. So I had to really get my leg up high to get his attention. And then crawl in a little bit closer. There you go. So that's what it was like shooting out there, you know, but this was the shot that resulted from that. So I went vertical with it, left the teleconverter in because I still wanted some tighter kind of portrait there because he was still a little small in frame. There's the original straight out of camera. That's the final edit right there. And then I shot a few more as he kind of wandered through those grasses there. At one point I got really close to him. And you can see, like, check out like the patterning in the face hair. Let me let this fully load so you guys can really appreciate it. But like the subtle green and the colors. And thankfully at this point that you can see the sun. We had catch light there, but it was like filtered. The clouds were starting to roll in, but they were thin and high. So it was like this muted, soft light. Just beautiful, beautiful light at this point. And I'm really glad because the direct sun would have been probably a little too harsh. But the nice thing was the background, the clouds weren't there yet in the sky, so you still got some of that blue color back there. It was just really awesome lighting at this point. Shot some of the female, played a little bit more with that king, and then moved on. Here's a, I think this one's, what's this one? Parasitic Jaeger, got to see them, no great shots. And then this was the other one that was kind of high on my list. Up until this point, I had photographed Wilson's phalarope and, what's the other one? Red-necked phalarope. But I'd never had a chance to photograph the red phalarope. And again, it wasn't long for us to find them. They were much larger than I expected. All the other phalarope species are really small, dainty little shorebirds. These guys were pretty chunky, probably like, I don't know, they seemed like close to 2 times the size to me, but was totally in the water. Found this, I think it was a pair, and just walked in the water. And that was it. Like, pretty much all these pools were really shallow. You had to be careful walking in just to make sure, but you could tell the small pools versus the bigger pools. And the ground was like, it was permafrost a certain distance down. Even in the water, it was just solid. So it wasn't real, like, it wasn't muddy or mucky or anything. So once I figured that out and got used to it, we basically would just like walk right through water. Like any pool or pond or anything like that, you just kind of go out and just walk right through. It was a very different way of shooting for sure. But But yeah, this was something I played with there. Got a Dunlin in breeding plumage. They're so stunning. I've been able to photograph them in breeding colors in New Jersey before, but never up in habitat like this. And we did get some in Nome as well, but you know, out in this tundra like this, it's so different than shooting shorebirds on the beach. You know, that's the neat thing of going up to their breeding habitat, is it's just so vastly different than the beach shorebirds that we're used to, you know. What's this guy? American Golden. There were, I don't know if we got Pacific Goldens up there. They're around. I just can't remember if I photographed them or not. Another red phalarope. Yeah, just beautiful stuff. And then snow buntings in breeding plumage. I've photographed plenty of snow buntings along the New Jersey coast in the past, but all non-breeding plumage, which they're still adorable in. So really cool to see them. They were just in these piles of snow that were left over from plowing, you know, on the side of the road kind of thing. There was very little snow left anywhere other than these big piles of snow. So this was nice. And again, really soft light. We got them there. This was, I think, just shooting out the car. Just we got out of the car and shot. I don't think we ever shot truly out of the car because it was so cold out. We had the heat on in the car to try and keep both of us warm, but especially Emily. And we didn't want any distortion shooting through the window. So usually anytime we saw something, we'd hop out. Pectoral sandpiper, that was another one that was on my list for sure. I really wanted to get these guys in full breeding plumage, just seeing that big old breast hanging down with the really cool feathers all flared out, hence the name of the species. So that was cool. And even got to see them flying around, and listening to them was so weird. Just the sounds they make, I can still kind of remember it in my mind. That was kind of a cool experience too. And seeing this pair kind of flying around like that was really cool. So that's one of the shots showing them doing some like this courtship display stuff. And yeah, I was always trying to mix it up with front light, side light, back light, things like that. But you know, sometimes when you're with these birds, if there's nothing real dramatic going on with the side light or the back light, the front light portrait was the way to go, and just get a nice solid clean portrait there. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's not my favorite style of photography, but a beautiful bird like this, the backgrounds were super clean. So it was a nice, easy thing to do, and got them even kind of coming into fly and land in some different tundra patches and stuff like that. Some greater white-fronted geese. That was a first for me. Lifer as well. And then some, I think these were tundra swans, yeah, out in this like really cool light and mist. This one, this was all in, pretty sure this was all night one, actually, staying out. So yeah, that was really fun. Found this guy, and here's something that would happen a lot too. If you found one of these birds just kind of isolated by themselves, one of these male ducks, they were very, very, very responsive to calls. They were on these tiny ponds, so you'd walk up, they wouldn't flush, they weren't scared, but sometimes they'd hang on the other edge. One time you'd play it. You just play the bird like I'd play a king eider call, and in this case, this guy was so curious, he just like flew right over, and then just sat there and just swam around in front of me, you know, and stuff like that. So here's the splash down when he would land, and then he was kind of, sometimes he was like splashing around in front of me and things like that. So, you know, most of the time you didn't have to do anything like that, but every once in a while it would work to just get a bird to come over a little bit closer to you. So I certainly did do some playback, and this was cool. He actually had the little tips up on the wing there, just full on posturing and everything, probably due to me playing the king eider call at that point. But yeah, just again, filtered, beautiful light, and a beautiful time. This one I had walked out completely on my own with Emily, or without Emily, so she didn't photograph this individual, but we had already had some great shots with the species. But yeah, it was really fun just seeing these birds out there. They were, like I said, relatively straightforward to find, but that whole first evening was pretty windy. You can see the water's still kind of rough there, so I wasn't getting any of those really nice, low, clean, classic, like reflection portraits and stuff like that. A long-tailed duck cruised by. I think this was that same pond even. And always nice seeing them in their ninja mode. The full breeding plumage there looks really cool. There's the top side of him looking really sharp. And then yeah, just some more, I think this was, yeah, another red phalarope. There's the male. Yeah, so I think female, male. And at this point, like just nothing, it was all portraits. I had the long lens most of the time. I was just trying to get portraits. Back to some snow buntings we found again, some more pectoral sandpipers and stuff like that. This is where I put the 100 or 400 on, started trying to show off more habitat, but the clouds had rolled in and it got just a little flat, you know? So I played around. Here's 160 millimeter with a redneck phalarope. And then I think this was kind of, we wrapped up the night. We did drive up to the Arctic Ocean just so we could see it and stand by it there. So there's the mostly frozen Arctic Ocean in the background in, you know, like, gosh, when was this? What time of the year? It was June 18th. So mid-June, still almost fully frozen Arctic Ocean up there. Then we started having some fun in some of these tundra pools. I don't know if this was the same night or not, hard to keep track, but this was also a while ago. Little ice formations in the tundra pools were really kind of cool to play with. So had some long-tailed ducks flying around there, doing some different stuff, and we were just trying to get them with these really cool ice formations, which were kind of neat, just having them sticking out. Yeah, but it's tough habitat up there, guys. It really is. Like, all this stuff is just brown grass, flat light, you know, lots of overcast. It's just tough to figure out what to do with that, you know. Thankfully, the sky had a little bit of color in it back there, and I'm sure I enhanced this a little bit in post, but it was just neat to play around with the 100 to 400, trying to show off a little bit more of the landscape there. Stuff like this, you know, I think gives you a bit more of appreciation of just the vastness of it, but it's so flat, so flat. There's a little redneck phalarope flying around, and I don't know if this was the time. Yeah, I was gonna say, this is when I put on the 24 to 70 and started playing with that, trying to get really wider angle stuff. Pacific loons were up there as well, so had some experience with those, but we had already shot them. I don't know if we shot them in Nome, but had shot them in Anchorage before as well, so we weren't putting too much effort in on them. I know there's Arctic loons up there as well, but I am not good enough of a birder to be able to tell the difference, so who knows. I may have even seen one and just didn't know it, but who knows. Yeah, so, you know, just tough trying to show off the icy conditions back there, playing around with that. Getting some of these birds on the frozen ponds I thought was cool. And then we saw our first snowy owl. He was just chilling on this snow fence, so not the best spot, but just kind of a neat sort of urban snowy owl portrait, so that was neat. We did see more again later, and you'll see some photos of those. More gray or white-fronted geese. Here's a phone photo, just like a nest we would stumble by. And I always felt bad, but like the birds were so hidden. You would just be walking out towards a pond, like, oh, let's go check this pond out there. And we would just park and walk out. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden you'd flush a goose right off of a nest because it was sitting right next to you and blended in so good you had no idea. And usually at that point I would just kind of move on. They'd go right back to the nest, and that would be that. But sometimes in the meantime, you'd get a photo of them working their way back and things like that. More golden plovers, then Pomeranian jaegers up there as well. Never got close to them, much more skittish species, so a little bit more in habitat shot, but still cool to see. So I've now gotten long-tailed Pomeranian and parasitic jaegers, which was really cool. So it was like every other bird was checking off a life bird up there, which was kind of neat. There's the Pomeranian flying. You can see the classic more rounded tail there, which is neat. But yeah, badass birds for sure, but not quite as friendly as the long-tail jaegers in Nome. Those were much more approachable at times, at least some of them were, and they were just so much more numerous. These guys were pretty sporadic. Playing around with some more long-tails, a little bit of rain coming down, so that was cool. Yeah, they're just so neat. I love these ducks in their breeding plumage. So they're straight out of camera, final edit right there. Neat to see the male and female together. Yeah, and then I guess they took off. Some more golden plover action. Lapland longspurs were all over up there, as well as Nome. We had already photographed a ton of them in Nome, so again, I was able to kind of not ignore them, but not put a ton of effort on these. I was putting much more effort in on those Eider species that I really wanted to get good photos of, and just trying to do more, you know, in habitat, wider angle stuff with some of the other things. But sometimes you'd hit really good spots with good color in the tundra like that, so that was kind of cool. When that happened, I would take advantage of it, you know, especially with these pectoral sandpipers, because we saw a lot of the other shorebird species, least sandpiper, semi-palm sandpiper, western sandpiper, and Dunlin all in Nome, but pectoral sandpipers, we didn't see any there. So I definitely spent a lot of time working with these guys. I think that might be a western, actually. And then the Dunlin as well, just mixed in because they're so pretty. But yeah, just playing with the pectorals, more Lapland. Here's another, gosh, they are stunning loons, aren't they? Pacific loon. Yeah, wow. really cool. It's fun to relive this. I haven't looked at these photos in a long time. More jaegers, parasitic this time. Me out in one of the lake, basically laying on the edge there, just seeing Emily, just kind of showing what it's like to be out in this unique habitat. Another spectacled eider, got a cool shot of him flying by over some of the icy sections. And then this angry looking red phalarope there. Yeah. But there really wasn't much to it, guys. It was like, you know, get low, shoot a foreground, the background melts away. You can go smaller in frame like this if you can get closer. Oh, this eider, I think, yeah, spectacled, had a satellite tag sticking out of her. So that was kind of interesting. You can see as she walked along, she had that. And then these guys posturing, these pectoral sandpipers. Sometimes I would definitely look for really, you know, more pretty places that had a little bit of the tundra flowers coming in, but there wasn't a ton of that just because it had just all thawed out somewhat recently. You know, it was just starting to come back to life, and you can see how brown a lot of it still is. But yeah, if you get some of these guys posturing, and then actually a little bit of color in the sky for a change. So that didn't happen a lot, but was able to get that sometimes in certain directions, just based on the cloud cover and what the sun was doing and stuff like that. Yeah, there's out on the edge of this pond. Emily stayed back, I think, on this one. So this was where I just walked up to this pond, and I ended up going in this pond. Most of it was frozen, but the edge was thawed out. So that's where a lot of these little birds were hanging. And so, yeah, they had a long-tailed duck here, and there was a few redneck phalaropes, I think, in here. And this time I went out with the 2470. And here was the other challenge. There was nowhere to set a lot of gear, so everything was wet, you know. So I usually had to pick a lens to go with, and I wasn't doing a lot of switching or anything like that myself. In hindsight, I guess it would have been smart to bring like more of like a tarp or something to just like lay down a small waterproof thing to lay down some of the gear on and stuff. But I don't know, once you're like in the water and everything, you're not running back out and stuff like that. Yeah, still trash in the tundra, unfortunately, right? But neat to see this guy like swim by. The sky was opening up a little bit more dramatic there. So this was the kind of habitat I could show off. It was more about really cool skyscapes and stuff and dealing with the reflection. So here I'm actually kind of standing up, shooting down to get the reflection of the sky and the water. And this is one of my favorites. I just really like the shape of the ice. And I purposefully was standing up higher to shoot down so you could kind of see that. Because if I got water level, you couldn't even see that like some of this was frozen and the different pieces of ice floating around in it and stuff like that. So it really required kind of a different approach than I normally do for this kind of stuff. There's me standing out in the water right along that ice edge there. And the ice was pretty solid, but I wasn't about to take a chance with the gear, you know, having a camera in my hand to like crawl across it. And even if you busted through, it was okay because I was in the dry suit. But I got to tell you, this particular shoot too, I very much recall I got really cold out there. I went in the water and I was really spending a lot of time trying to get these red-necked phalaropes small in frame because they would swim right around me. Again, just like the ducks, every once in a while you would use a little playback and it would just bring these phalarope in kind of close to you, and then they just start feeding and hanging out around you and stuff. And so sometimes I'd get them really, really close to me with that technique, but they move fast. They come in, they start feeding and looking around. They're just looking along the edges for all the different stuff that they feed. And so they just move quick. And so I spent probably close to 45 minutes to an hour standing in the water there. And I had the dry suit on, but that doesn't give you insulation. So we had a lot of layers on underneath, but it's still, after a while, like especially my feet were getting just really, really cold. I mean, it's ice water, you know, it's just shy of frozen. So it was tough shooting sometimes with this, but actually I got one of these red phalarope with this technique. There's one of, I think it's partner bird right up there. And I did play around with some lower perspective stuff as well, just trying to get, in fact, actually this looks like two males, so I think they maybe weren't partnered up yet. But yeah, just playing with the 2470, seeing what I could do, trying to incorporate these cool icy shapes and little like mini icebergs floating in these ponds were kind of neat. And yeah, it was a good time. The sun was interesting. Here's a couple of rednecks chasing each other around. And this is what I was talking about. So I'd stand up and they'd be like right at my feet. So, you know, my feet are right down here in the frame and they're just swimming right around you. It's kind of amazing how sort of carefree a lot of the birds are up in this tundra habitat. I guess there's just not a lot of human activity, and so they don't see us as predators, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, this one particular ice shape kind of caught my attention, and then the cloud reflection in the water. So I spent a lot of time around it and was able to get this when this redneck phalarope swam by. And you know, a lot of times they'd come in and they'd spin around, and then they'd have, the water was all rippled up, so it was like a challenge to try and get them swimming in clean, so the rest of the water was calm with the reflection and stuff like that, and playing around. And this is 24 millimeter, you know, so a little bit of a lower perspective there. Thank you, flip screens. And then yeah, just really trying to incorporate that stuff into the image. It's a less than successful attempt, but you know, it's hard to see when you're using the flip screen, and I'd never shot this habitat, so it made me really try a lot of different things, which was fun. I tried to use the ice as foreground a little bit, but I think the most successful ones were the up higher perspectives. They felt like they showed off the habitat more to me than when you would get low, because as you can see, like when you get low, like it just really minimizes the habitat there, versus where's that one that's my favorite? Like up here, you can actually see it a little bit more. Like you can see the foreground versus the mid into the back, you know. So I think those higher perspective ones just kind of do the trick a little bit better. So anyway, back to these. I'll just flip through some of these real quick. Had a long tail come through, try to play with a silhouette, but of course there's power lines out there, made that less than ideal. Yeah, and then I think, who knows, maybe next day, I don't know. Just playing around with some longer telephoto stuff again, trying to incorporate the ice as much as possible. This one I really like, you know, these red feller, yeah, so they're straight out of camera. Final edit on that. Actually, there's final edit with that guy. So yeah, and then just some beautiful portraits of these redneck phalaropes. They're stunning shorebirds, aren't they? So really, really cool stuff there. Playing around with different compositions here. Yeah, and I had both species just kind of meandering around there. Another Pomeranian jaeger. And then eventually we'll get to, oh yeah, this guy came out, and like, this is one of the times where I had just like, this was the best light. This was as golden as I could get it. This is backlit. You know, the tundra's already brown, so it's got that golden light hitting it. But there you go. Like this is the lowest sun. This is probably about 3 a.m. So I think this was night 2 when the sun cleared out. It's either night 2 or 3, I can't remember. But Emily and I went out, it was really cloudy, and then all of a sudden it just broke over where the sun was, like the horizon, the sky opened up, and we got the sun coming through, and it was really, really stunning. And unfortunately by this time, Emily had gotten kind of sick, I don't know, probably from just all the traveling and stuff like that, so she spent a lot of the time just sitting in the car, just trying to stay warm and being okay. And in fact, I think there was 1 or 2 times she just stayed back in the hotel and didn't even bother going out because it was just too uncomfortable to be out in the car. So I think she may have missed some of this kind of stuff, but yeah, the light and the colors were pretty nice for some of these. So you can see, you can get some good light, but like it still is just never, it's still real strong. You can see how heavy the shadows are. So it was never that touching the horizon, beautiful golden light that I was in my head hoping I could get, you know. But anyway, yeah, had a blast just photographing all these different species, just trying to play with some different ice, out of focus ice patterns and stuff in the background. Long-tailed duck doing full courtship maneuvers, flying around, some backlit pectoral stuff, you know. And here's a great example. If that sun gets low to the horizon, you can expose this so much better, but it's still so strong in the backlight, especially when the clouds completely clear out, that it kind of made it tough, you know. But yeah, it was still like just a beautiful, beautiful area to see. And I'll kind of sift through a lot of these. Got a Pacific loon in some of this good light. I think I had a pair. And then, yeah, I was just gonna say, I remembered this king eider. I shot the Pacific loons and then saw the king eider. He came flying in and then landed right in front of me and then just swam right over. It was a calm day, so here we go. King eider with 2 Pacific loons right behind him in the background there, but he came over and just gave me like the cleanest, most beautiful portraits. I got the best light you could get that time of year, calm water, clean water. I played around with different heights just to put him, you know, in that sort of shoreline and out of the shoreline and stuff like that. But yeah, this was a really cool encounter. And then left them, got this greater white fronted, some more long tails and that sort of thing. So yeah, I did have some good times with the lighting here while it was really good. And And then cut to the last day. This is the last day, last overnight outing, and I finally got that Steller's eider that I've been after. So really interesting story on these. So like I said, my friends, I think Ben Newt and Matthew Studebaker had both been suggesting like I check out this one area. They had seen some there with their groups. So I went over there and couldn't find them at first. Finally found this pair like way out. I walked way out into the tundra off the road and found this pair. They were real skittish. Spent a ton of time crawling up. This was about the best I got with them. Got another dowitcher on the way. So like these were the shots. There's the female. You can see the male out of focus there. And then I got these shots. And then they went into another pool. I went in the water, and that's some of the advice I had gotten from some other photographers was like, hey, they're more skittish when you're on land, but if you're in the water, they're okay. So I did. I got right in the water, and for whatever reason, this pair, it freaked them out more, and they flushed. I felt really bad, but they flushed, and like I watched them fly pretty far into a direction onto the other side of the road. So I go walking all the way back across to get to the road, shoot some stuff along the way, found this pectoral, and then I get out on the other side, and I find him again. And this time I take even more care, really slowly crawling down, belly crawling in, taking my time. Finally get in and get some of these portraits. And then the pair, they swam off and then like walked over into another pool. So I figured, let me give them some time. I don't want to keep pushing these birds around. So I just started walking out to see what else I could get. And after these few shots, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I don't know if they flushed again or if this was another one flying by. But anyway, I give them all a break. And I just go walking out, find another snowy owl, which is really cool. And then on my way back towards where I thought these Steller's eiders were, in one of the ponds, I'm like, oh, I found another Steller's. So I go walking over to him, and I'll tell you this story. It's pretty funny. I go walking, I'm like stalking in on this guy, and then I look through the viewfinder. I'm like, he's not moving, and it's a decoy. There was like a Steller's eider decoy just out in one of these tundra ponds in the middle of nowhere. And so it was just kind of like sitting there all by itself. And I'm like, that's really weird. And then I walk over to it, and I'm like laughing that I can't believe like this is a decoy I was stalking. And then I see the pair, the actual pair. They're alive this time, and they're just like a few ponds over. And so I thought to myself, I wonder if I can use this decoy to get them to come closer to me. So I wade into the pool, this tundra pond, grab the decoy, go over to where they are. It was a long pond, and it was like almost like a figure eight. So like a big pond where they were, and then it came real narrow, and then it opened up where I was. So I went on that, like the complete opposite end, laid down, waited about 5-10 minutes for everything to just settle down. So they were like more relaxed, because they obviously saw me walking in. You can't really sneak up on most of these things. There's no cover. So I lay down, and then in my head, I thought, maybe if I toss the decoy in, they'll think the splash is like another duck landing, see the decoy, and maybe they'll swim over. Guys, so I did just that. I chucked the decoy into the water after everything settled down. The actual ducks look over, and then the male took off and came right to me. Here he is flying. He lifted off, flew over, and then he landed in my side of like this bigger pool right in front of me. And so I ended up getting this series of shots here that were some of my favorites. And so not great light, just flat overcast, but I went more high key with it. I just went with like a lighter exposure and then shot this, but just, he came close enough that at 560 millimeter, I was able to completely blur out the background, get a clean shot, and really show off this species with like such a unique coloration on them. They really are unique looking eiders. So yeah, that's how I did that, right? So that was my experience there. He swam back to his lady. I left them alone. I didn't even bother trying to sneak in on them anymore because I didn't want to flush them again. I had already pushed them around enough. So I just wanted to let them be, and then started working with some long-tailed ducks. Yeah, I think this is him flying back to his lady. Oh no, I guess that's just some of the same series, just out of sequence there. Last morning, got Emily right before we were leaving. We went out one last time, got some more snow bunting, saw another snowy owl, saw another Arctic fox, and then got to see him kind of like almost not chase, but he went right in the same area as the snowy owl. and kind of like flush the snowy owl off. So that was kind of how we ended it, with like an Arctic fox and a snowy owl. So yeah, that was the whole experience there. And yeah, back to these are some of my favorites here. Oops. It was a very unique experience up there. I'm glad I did it, but like I said, I don't know if I'd go again, just because it's not my favorite style of shooting. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you got any other outings you'd like to see one of these with. Thanks so much.